Hello, I'm Jessamy Carlson and I'm the Family History Specialist here at Kew. In this film, I'll be taking a look at how you might discover that your forebears worked on the railways, the variety of sources you can use to trace their careers and lives through time. I'll look at records created by railway companies and other sources in the public domain to show the type of information which you might wish to seek out when tracing people in the past. I'm going to work through 3 case studies and tell you a little bit about the lives of 3 people who worked on the railways in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. I'll talk about Herbert James, who worked on the Great Western Railway for all of his career, about Frederick Lemon, who is a railway man all of his life, finishing up with the GWR, and about Elizabeth Pine, who worked at Oxford Station for many years. While my examples here do draw largely on GWR records, which are conveniently digitised, the information these records contain are common to many railway companies. You can search for railway company records through our catalogue, which will indicate whether the records are held by us at Kew or are in the care of another archive. If you are broadly interested in railway history, there is an extensive range of material within our collections, and you can take a look at our research guide to railway history on our website. You might also want to look at the collections held by the National Railway Museum in York, or other collections such as the Transport for London archives. You may also be interested in a project which we collaborated on with the University of Portsmouth, amongst others, on life, work and death on the railways, which explores accident reports on the railways in the 19th and 20th centuries. So our first case study here is that of Herbert Lewis James, born on January 26, 1885, employee number 9590. He spent his career on the Great Western Railway, whose remit in the 19th century was far wider than its modern area of coverage. The staff registers for the GWR show that Herbert began his career as an engine cleaner at Crewe on May 25, 1903, and eventually retired on January 26, 1945. This gives details of his career and his movements from Crewe to Cardiff to Oxford, back to Cardiff to Barnstaple, and then Newport, Tyseley, and then back to Newport, and finally serving out the rest of his days at Cardiff. Herbert's birth certificate shows he was born at home in Bedminster to Mary Ann née Jenkins and Thomas James on 26th of January 1885, and his father Thomas is listed as a railway engine fireman on his birth certificate, so clearly railways ran in the family, and this is quite common. Herbert first appears in the 1891 census, when the family are living at number 5, 2 Bridges Road, Lidford, near Tavistock in Devon, with 7-year-old Thomas, 6-year-old Herbert, 4-year-old Edwin, and 2-year-old Florence. Thomas is listed as a railway engine driver. By the 1901 census, the family are living at 9 Madeley Street in Crewe, with Herbert aged 16, his older brother Thomas 17, his younger brother 14-year-old Edwin, and little sister 12-year-old Florence. Thomas Sr. is still an engine driver, and Thomas Jr. is listed as being apprenticed to the Railway Engineering Department. It is in 1903 that Herbert joins the GWR, where he progresses up the ranks from engine cleaner through to first group fireman on July 6, 1914. His entry in the staff register shows that he was initially rejected owing to a heart condition, but somehow manages to circumnavigate that issue within 6 weeks, and then spends his entire career with the GWR. He has 2 minor accidents in his career: scalding himself with hot tea in a mess room at Cardiff on January 19, 1905, and just over a year later, tripping over signal wire near the loco shed at Crewe. By the 1911 census, Herbert and his wife Maud have been married for 4 years and are living at 125 Wellington Street with their 3-year-old son Leonard and Maud's mother Emily. Herbert is 27, Maud 25, and Herbert is listed as a locomotive fireman. The location listed as his workplace suggests that he continues to work on the GWR. During the First World War, Herbert served as a sapper in the railway section of the Royal Engineers, number 174905. He joined the Colours on June 5, 1915, returning to duty on March 3, 1919 after demobilisation, and was awarded the British War Medal and the Victory Medal in recognition of his service. When he returns to the GWR, he is promoted to the rank of engine man, where he remains until he is restricted to light duties for 6 months in 1935. In the 1921 census, the family remains at 125 Wellington Street, with wife Maud, sons Herbert, aged 12, Thomas, 10, 8-year-old Phyllis, and 1-year-old Olive, along with Maud's mother, Emily. The children are all at school, Maud is keeping house, and Herbert lists himself as an engine driver on the GWR out of Cardiff. In the 1939 register, the family remain at the same address, and Herbert is still recorded as a railway engine driver. It is also noted that he worked on the auxiliary ambulances during the Second World War. Both son Herbert and daughter Olive are working in a local print works. Herbert Jr. works as an ARP warden too. In 1944, Herbert reaches the mandatory retirement age and retires from the GWR. His probate records and entry in civil registration records show that he eventually passed away in 1966 in Cardiff. This brings us to the second example. He was a chap called Frederick Arnold Lemon, born the 28th of September 1878 at Castle Carey in Somerset, to Frederick George and Emily Margaret Lemon. Fred was baptised in the parish church in Castle Carey on November 1st, 1878, and Frederick Sr. is listed as a tailor in the baptism register. When the 1881 census is enumerated, 2-year-old Fred is listed with his parents, Frederick and Emily, along with his older brother Nathaniel, aged 6, and sister Ethel, aged 4. Their grandfather, also Nathaniel, is living with them, along with 2 household servants. In the 1891 census, Fred is listed as a boarder in a small private school in Clifton, alongside his older brother Edward. There seems to be a habit of boys in this family being known by their middle names, and sometimes Fred is listed by his first name, others by his middle name, and others by both names. Fred joined the railways on September 16, 1896, and was apprenticed to the locomotive works belonging to the London and North Western Railway from September 1896, subsequently joining the drawing office at Crewe in September 1900. This information is listed on his entry in the staff register. Earlier in 1900, the records show that Frederick was appointed as a second lieutenant supernumerary in the Royal Engineers Volunteers in the 2nd Cheshire Railway Division on February 14th. In the 1901 census, he is listed as an apprentice to the locomotive works and is living at 49 Lawton Street in Crewe as a boarder. In May 1902, he joined the Crewe running sheds and spent time at Birkenhead, Bangor, Northampton, Netherfield and Colwick, and Camden. In 1907, Fred marries Ethel Mary Birch at Willerton in Somerset, and on the 1st of January 1910, Fred transferred from the Camden Locomotive Works to the Dundalk, Newry and Greenall Railways into the Goods Superintendence Department in Ireland, and on May 1st, 1912, transferred back to the Crewe Locomotive Department. In the 1911 census, Fred was living in Greenall Town in Louth, Ireland, with his wife Ethel and their baby son George. They appear accordingly in the Irish 1911 census. He moved back to Crewe in May 1912 and was promoted to Assistant Works Manager in April 1916, rising to Works Manager in December 1920. At the peak of his career, he had responsibility for over 8,000 men employed by the works and had overseen the reorganisation of the Crewe Locomotive Works. Early in 1916, Fred and Ethel's daughter Elizabeth Margaret is born on January 24th and baptised on 20th of February 1916 at Christ Church, Chester. Their address is given as 155 Gainsborough Road, Crewe, and Fred is listed as an engineer in the baptism register. By the 1921 census, George is away at Oakfield School in Rugby, where he is a boarder, and the remainder of the family are at home in Dever Villa in Crewe. Frederick lists himself as a locomotion engineer and as works manager at the London and North Western Railway Co. Further records show that in 1922, Fred is still the works manager for the London and North Western Railways at the Crewe depot and is one of the men in the Chief Mechanical and Electrical Engineers Department whose role is retained during the amalgamation of the London North Western and the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Companies in 1922. his salary is upped from £1,200 a year to £1,300. In 1928, Fred was proposed for membership of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers by several of the most senior engineers at the London and North Eastern Railway and the London, Midland and Scottish Railway in March 1928, and was duly elected a member on July 20th, 1928. By the time of the 1939 register, Fred is living at Dever Villa, Chester Place in Crewe, listed as a mechanical engineer and superintendent of the LMS Loco Works at Crewe. His daughter Elizabeth is still at home, along with her cook, Veda Lallam. Ethel, on the other hand, appears to be staying in Farnham with friends. Nothing is known of Fred's time between 1939 and his subsequent death in the public record. However, these do show that Fred died in a nursing home in Watford on October 23rd, 1961, and he is buried with his late wife, who had predeceased him by just 2 months, in the cemetery at Castle Carey in Somerset. This brings us to our final case study in the shape of Elizabeth, alias Eliza Pine, a waiting room attendant at Oxford Station, who was born on the 27th of September 1851, who joined the London and North Western Railway Co. on July 4th, 1898. Her birth was registered in the December quarter of 1851 in Exeter. The indexes to the civil registration of marriages show that Eliza Elston married William Pine in the March quarter of 1871 in Wellington in Somerset. The couple went on to have 4 daughters, 3 of whom did not survive infancy. By the 1881 census, William and Eliza are living at 59 Great College Street in St Pancras, and their 3rd daughter Ethel Mary was born in the December quarter of 1882. Her death was registered in the June quarter of 1884, aged just 1. Their youngest daughter, Hannah Marianne Pine, was born in the June quarter of 1891 in St Pancras, and in the 1891 census, Eliza is living with William and their baby daughter Hannah, who is just a month old. They are living at number 231 Clarence Buildings in Kentish Town, near to St Pancras. William is listed as a railway servant, but no details of his employer are documented in this census entry. Both William and Elizabeth list places in Devon as their birthplaces, but William does not appear in any of the railway employment records we hold at the National Archives, so I imagine that he worked for one of the companies operating out of St Pancras, whose records are held elsewhere. In a 1901 census, Eliza is listed as a 49-year-old widow and is living at 15 Hythebridge Street in Oxford, and lists herself as a waiting room attendant. The details have been scrawled over by the enumerator, but it looks as though it may say the LNWR, the London and North Western Railway, as the employer, and she is living by herself at this stage. The same census shows that Hannah is at the St Thomas home in Oxford for industrial training, perhaps a reflection on her mother being widowed and needing to work. Elizabeth is living at 24 High Street, St Thomas, Oxford, in the 1911 census, where she is listed as a waiting room attendant at the Oxford station. A widow, she notes she had given birth to 4 children, only one of whom remained living. Her 20-year-old daughter Hannah, who is living with her, along with Eliza Cox, a 73-year-old boarder. Elizabeth lists her place of birth at St Sidwell's, Exeter in Devon, while Hannah was born in St Pancras. In 1914, daughter Hannah married William G. Fitchett in Oxford, and the 1939 register shows that the couple went on to have at least 4 daughters: Elizabeth Mary Elston in 1926, Marguerite Patricia Summers in 1928, and twins Kathleen Dawn and Sheila Rosemary in 1929. All of the girls were born in Hendon, and William worked for the London, Midland and Scottish Railway. By the 1939 register, Hannah and the family are living in St Albans. Elizabeth is listed living alone on the 1921 census as a widow aged 69 and living at 24 High Street, St Thomas in Oxford. In the 1921 census, Hannah and William are living at 63 Barry Road in Willesden, and William is a signalman for the London and Scottish Railway. Elizabeth dies in the March quarter of 1925 in Hendon, aged 73, presumably having moved there to be near to her daughter, but sadly preempting the arrival of her granddaughters, the eldest of whom is named in full for her. Thank you for watching this webinar. We've drawn on a variety of sources, from civil registration records to the census to employment records for a number of companies to show how and where you might find information relating to a railway ancestor. Depending on which company they worked for, my top tip is to search for this railway company within our catalogue, Discovery, and see what information you can find about where records for that railway company might be held. That could be here at Kew, or it could be in other collections, but by and large there is very good survival rate, especially for records like staff registers. Thank you and good luck with your research.